Man, just trying to stay alive in these crazy times. How are things up by now? You're back in New York now, right?
Yeah, back in New York at the moment. It's interesting. A lot of people are asking, "How's the business? How are things going?" And I think all things considered, we're faring pretty well. But just before COVID, we were bumping. Like business was good. We were hiring trainers. We were training them. We were getting people set up to start doing privates. There's a lot of like behind the scenes growth with the team and
Right,
everything. And
right.
I'd say right now we're probably operating at like 50%, which
Yeah,
is better than most.
right, right.
Private training and board and train, that stuff is great. It's really the boarding and the train and play. So boarding, we only work with dogs that we've done some work with. They don't have to be perfect.
Gotcha.
It might be group class, it might be private session, it could be a board and train, but we know you, we're familiar with the dog, and you guys, even if your dog is not perfect and you're still working on things, we're all on the same page. So
Yeah.
it makes things easier. So we offer exclusive services. Boarding is one of them.
Hmm.
Um, and then train and play. So train and play is kind of like our version of daycare, just structured. There's walking, there's a little bit of socialization, there's playtime, there's relaxed time, there's a little bit of all that stuff. So those are services that are only offered for our clients. And then we
Yeah.
also have pack socialization, which currently we're not able to do. That's like we turn it into sort of like a dog park, but
Right.
we're narrating everything that's happening, and based on where the client is with their dog, allowing them to start practicing doing stuff in a more controlled environment than your average chaotic dog park, which is
Yeah.
actually really nice. And we can say, hey, call your dog out of that, or no, 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 let that occur, let that happen. This is what this dog is saying. This is cool, and it's really nice. Unfortunately, we can't do that right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you guys are in a whole different ball game up there. I feel for everyone, because most of my family, well, all of my family's still up that way, right across the river, and everything's just, the dog training world alone. A lot of people shut down completely. A lot of people just couldn't keep their doors open, and that's heartbreaking.
And
That's
in every way, shape, and form, someone like everyone's affected in some way. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And I think right now, like I said, our private training and our board and trains and stuff, and our one-on-one stuff is doing really well. It's really the boarding and the training play that has like died down a little, and some of that is because people are trying to kind of save their money because they're in a little bit of a situation, or for some of our maybe wealthier clients, they're gone, they're in the Hamptons, they've disappeared, they're getting away from the city. So right now, that's a little bit slower, but it's been nice because it's been a nice opportunity for me to work with the team a little bit more, to get hands on with more of the dogs, and you try and make lemonade when life hands you lemons.
yeah. No, I totally get it. Now, are you splitting your time between Florida? Are you living down there part of the year now?
Yeah, so Florida is kind of interesting. We purchased a property out there, and in Florida, what we're doing is one. It's a nice. New York City is nice. I'm born and raised here. I love it. Phenomenal food.
Yeah,
Really, really
yeah.
just opportunity here and things that are just top notch. But it's a grind and it's a 24/7 hustle.
Right.
So Florida has been a nice place for us to kind of unwind, and really with my daughter, she's 18 or 19 months now, really just have time to kind of hang out with my wife, hang out with my daughter, and just kind of create memories. So one of the things that I've always wanted to do, which is really interesting, opening up this facility has been like a huge dream of mine. And it's been fantastic when a lot of naysayers are like, you can't do that in New York. You don't understand with this environment. It's not something that can happen. Plus, rent is too expensive. We made it work. But one of the things that I really, really enjoy is just getting the time or having the time to devote myself to like working with one dog. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And just a lot of like kind of what it seems like you're doing,
Yeah.
and just there's something really magical about that. So I was like, you
No.
know what? What if we purchase a property where we can create memories with our family, we can have our dogs there, and we can take one dog that becomes a member of the family. hangs out with my wife, hangs out with my dogs, with me, and just becomes that. And that's what we're doing in Florida.
Yeah, that's great. I love to hear that. That's what I do for the most part. I mean, I just started doing private lessons again. I
Okay.
stopped doing it for a long time,
Oh,
but
wow.
the fact is, I take so few dogs for board and train. I had to try to get to people, so that's a way that I could still work. And what I realized, I started a ton of them just this week. I'm slammed, but I do miss that interaction with the client, the teaching from scratch. The ground up, and you meet some pretty awesome people, because the people that want that, for the most part, that come here, they really want to learn. It's awesome. I had a young lady last week that started. She was set for a board and train, and she called and she said, I don't mean to be a pain in the butt, but is there any way I could be a big part of this process? I'd like to learn. I said, okay, well, we're going to save you $2,300, and we're going to do private lesson, music to my ears, and when I met her the first lesson, I didn't have to, normally the first hour, 90 minutes, whatever that I would normally do with a brand new person, I didn't have to do any of that. Like, she was really, really squared away, because she had been studying so much stuff.
Oh, they're the best.
Oh, it was great. It was I mean, it was pretty awesome. And then yesterday I started another couple here with the Malinois. Awesome people, like the nicest people. And I had the tripod set up out back in the yard on the grass, and I was going to film the majority of the lesson. But you never know what you're going to do. We never made it back there. We never left the driveway, because what I thought I was going to do day one, it's not what they needed and not what the dog needed. And so we just went with it, and that's the one thing I do like about the privates, because with the go home lessons, I hate it. I really, it's a lot, and it's a lot of information to deliver to people and to teach people. So I tend to get a lot of people from far away, as I know you probably do too, and I don't like it. So when someone calls me for a board and train from out of state or across the country, I really try to steer them towards someone in their area, because the dog part's going to go fine like all dogs, but I'd like to have several private sessions afterwards to really work with the people, because that's where we're going to get the everlasting results, And when you can't do that, the people miss out. They're not going to get the same results, and I tell them this. I don't want them coming here, but some people are like, no, we're gonna come, we're gonna do it. So I'm always trying to tweak things to make their learning capability when they get here better in the time that we have, And what I do now is, when they do get here from out of state, to make it real comfortable out back, and we sit down sometimes for an hour or two and just talk, and let the dog get settled in with them here, and let them get settled in, because when they're talking for an hour, 2 hours, you learn more about them and the dog in that period that you didn't know before. You know what I mean? And so that's worked out really, really well. But as far as I'm busier than I've ever been, and I'm exhausted. I'm absolutely fried at this point, and I'm going to need a break soon. Now, I wish I would have seen you when I was up there doing the UN thing.
Such a bummer. I know, man. I know. I was bummed out. It was hectic, crazy times, and I'm fortunate that you were able to come on, visit. The team was able to see you. They were just as excited as I was, and I was definitely.
You got a good group there. They're good young people, and they treated me right, and they took me out, and we had I really liked them all. I had a really good time. They took me to Joe Shanghai, and it was awesome.
I love that.
I was there for 14 days, but I was working a security detail with a foreign diplomat for the UN thing there, the General Assembly. And so I was working pretty much 14-hour days.
Wow.
But I'm not going to waste my time when I'm back in New York. So I slept bare minimum. I mean, 2-3 hours a day, because as soon as I was off every day, as soon as I let my guy go, I went out someplace awesome every night. And there's no place like New York.
It's something, isn't it? Yeah.
The best. I miss it so much, man.
Yeah.
Well, if things keep going the way they are, it might not be there anymore. You
You know,
know?
it's interesting. You were talking about, well, actually, everyone has a different opinion on this, but right now there's a lot of outdoor seating
Yeah.
for restaurants because restaurants are just trying to survive. And it's really these are interesting times right now for sure. But a lot of spots that maybe didn't have outdoor seating are setting up where normally cars would be parked
Yeah,
outdoors.
less parking now.
Yeah, yeah.
Parking's even worse,
So
right?
it's super interesting. But you know, you touched on something before, where you were talking about how out of state clients and not being able to work with them, how that can be kind of something that you don't enjoy and is a little bit difficult. What I noticed was during COVID situation, I actually had a client in Florida, and I was doing kind of the intimate situation when I was there before COVID was like
Right.
really a thing, and then it hit. And when it hit, Lindsay and I were like, "Hey, we have to make a decision. What's responsible? How do we do this? How do we figure this out?" So we're trying to make smart business decisions. And then before we were mandated to close, one of our employees actually got sick
Mm.
and ended up with like a fever and stuff. We didn't know what it was. So at that point where it was like really no one knew what was going on, it was like this really big thing. We had to make the call just to be safe and say, hey, listen, I think we got to close because if this thing is what everyone makes it out to be, this is scary and we need to be responsible. So in the middle of training programs, we had to end everything. And we had clients that were in Korea. We had clients that were like in different places, like some on vacation, some for work, that we had to like say, hey, listen, like, you know, we have to close shop. And we closed up a little bit earlier than it was mandated, but it was inevitable. It happened. Fortunately, our employee was okay and tested negative, but we were closed for just shy of 3 months. And now we're back, and what I'm doing is just I'm here and just kind of helping to, in a way, kind of rebuild everything. But the reason I bring this up is what I noticed is a lot of those board and train programs, some that were early in the program and some even that were later in the program, although we got to a really good place with those dogs, because the drop-offs were like no contact drop-offs. Like, listen, this is not what we want to do. This is not how we go about it. I know we sent you videos. I know you know that your dog is doing great. Try to follow this to the best of your ability. Don't worry about this. Don't even try to do this. A lot of dogs hit a little bit of like this slope, and we did right by them. We started them back up. You know, we're getting them in and did everything. And what a major difference it is with being able to work with the human, because our go home sessions are 2 to 4 hours. And in addition to our go home sessions, they're getting videos, they're getting worksheets, they're getting like a 90-day sheet for things that they can expect. And then we have a follow-up session with them about 2 to 4 weeks after they're practicing like fundamentals. So, you know, even with that by itself, it's day and night. Everybody that came back that we started working with that were maybe struggling, we're like, this is what I was missing. This makes sense. I was trying to do this. And it's like these little nuanced details that can make a major difference. And it's incredible, you know, it really is. They're such a big part of or piece of the puzzle.
Man, it really is. And that's when I have local people for private lessons here, what I'll do often is, and when I say local, I mean right here. Instead of, you know, the way I do the privates is after the first lesson, I'll probably do the second a week later. And then the third, maybe a week or maybe 2. But then I start spreading them out further across time as we teach more. But, you know, what I tell people is after that first lesson, you're going to screw everything up this week. It's okay. You're going to make all kinds of mistakes. It's okay. But what we're doing, the mistakes you make, you're not going to mess the dog up. So don't worry about it. But for the people that I can pop in by surprise on a Tuesday or Wednesday and say, come out and work your dog. And right away you see the mistakes. Okay, change this. The difference when we get to that next weekend day or wherever we do it is unbelievable. The difference, just to be able to let them make the mistakes, but then to show them what the mistakes in the right way is, instead of wait until the next lesson. I might do it for 10 minutes sometimes. Bring your dog out. Let me see you do this. And when you see that they're off with the communication and the timing and you make them change it before you leave, by the time you see them a couple of days later for the next lesson, it's like night and day.
Yeah.
You know, like night.
I often, lately, this has been a big topic for me in a lot of my videos, is that the activity the exercise or the training that you're doing doesn't matter as much as how you're doing it.
Right.
And that's honestly, that's everything. You know what I mean? Something from as simple as like, I don't know, place. Some people are about place, some people are not about place. And
Right.
I really try and stress to like, place is not a bad thing. And some people use it and some people don't. But how you go about the exercise is the big difference.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Just
And,
like anything else with the dog training tool, with the remote collar, how you go about using the tool matters more than the tool itself.
yeah. And what people have to understand is there is no one way to train a dog. You have, probably hundreds of thousands of trainers out there. Everyone could do things different. And as long as you're consistent and clear on what you're telling the dog in your own way, the dog gets it, they're going to be fine.
Yeah.
They're going to be fine. But when I see people trying to emulate someone, if you take some of the greats out there, the top people, learn from them, absolutely 100%. But when you try to copy and be them, it's never going to work out, because you're not them. And when you're trying to emulate a genius, you're going to fall short. You know what I mean?
You know what's really interesting is so Tyler Muto and I, well, this year we didn't do it, but we teach seminars together. And
Right.
Usually what we do is at the end of the seminar, we're in like the hotel and we're in the hotel room or back at his house. And we go over who we worked with, who we didn't, who we need to spend more time with, and all of these things. And we started talking about just like seminars we've attended and people we learned from and books that we read and all this stuff. And it got to a point where somehow the topic of conversation was, when you spend time attending a seminar or reading this book or learning or taking this workshop for a brief moment, you start doing everything exactly the same, or at least trying to, the way that they're doing it. And through that, you do learn. You learn what works, you learn what doesn't work. But eventually,
You go back to yourself.
Go back to yourself with a little bit of that. And then eventually, that's where the magic is right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. It's such a natural thing. You try to become that person, and then you go, wait, this is not me, but I'm going to use this, and you roll with it.
Well, if you go to someone who has a huge presence, a huge personality, someone like if you go to an Ivan seminar or a Bart seminar, someone that's at the top of the game, just has a tremendous presence in what they're doing. Okay. A lot of people come out of there really struggling because they're so overwhelmed by the genius in people like that. They kind of forget to learn, and they go and they get entertained for a weekend, and they're kind of in awe of what they see people like that can do, instead of focusing on learning what they're providing as far as information goes. And I saw it, I saw it years ago when I was doing seminars, going to seminars. I'd be blown away that people with working spots would go, and when they got a chance to work their dog, it's the only time they were paying attention. When they weren't out there working with the individual, they were talking and bullshitting with their friends and socializing. And I'm thinking, you have to be out of your mind to do that. I don't talk. I don't do anything. I listen to every word that comes out of someone's mouth like that, because with me, some of the biggest aha moments I've had from people like that is when they weren't saying things to teach something. They didn't think they were teaching something. The lesson wasn't there. It wasn't something specific, but it might have been just one little detail that they mentioned where I said, holy crap. And I talk about the time with my Dutch Shepherd that I struggled with. It was Bart's first seminar back in the States. Tyler was there. Tyler and Josh were there. There were a ton of us there. I was the only guy that went out with my dog that day. I didn't get her as a puppy. It's the first dog I didn't raise as a puppy. She was a little older, and she was great at home, worked like a superstar. As soon as I took her out of the house, she looked like I had been beating her. And, and I drove 14 hours to go work with them. And all day, all weekend, everyone brought their dogs out, 10, 15 minutes, problem fixed. I go out, he said, all right, what's your problem? And I tell him, all right, throw the ball, do this, do this. He said, I can't help you. And he's like, took her to a 60%. He said, I might get her to a 65%. He goes, but this dog will never be 100%. Everyone felt bad for me, but I didn't feel bad. As long as I knew I did everything I could, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But then instead of putting her back in the car like most people did, it was mostly working dogs. She was sitting with me as he was working with the next dog. And he said something about spontaneous reward. And for some odd reason, I don't know if I did something or moved a certain way, the dog's ears came up and she looked at me. And when she did that, I said yes, and I rewarded her. And she took the reward, but it created some confusion. She had no idea what she was rewarded for. So while she was confused, the ears stayed up and she was looking at me. And I said, yes, reward. Yes, reward. I did it, I don't know, 5-10 times in a row. I snatched her up and I went down the street to a school ground. I took her out and I started working her and she looked great. When I got back that weekend, I talked to my wife, and Sophia was real little. You know, I don't even know if I think Renzo might have just been born. And there was a new rule. When Karma looks sad, no one pays attention to her. She doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. We don't feed her. We don't play with her. We don't give her affection when she looks down in the dumps, only when she looks strong. So 6 months later, when I went back to work with Bart, I didn't go to work with the dog. I just went to go attend, but I brought her with me. Mm-hmm. And I was working the dog at intermission at a break. And he came up. He said, that's not the same dog. I said, yeah, it is. He said, fuck no, it's not. I said, no, it really is. I love that. I said, it really is. He said, what the hell did you do? I said, well, it was something you said that made me think. And he said, well, what did I say? And when I told him what he said about spontaneous, roar, he said, I didn't say that. I was like, yes, you did. But you see, that's what I mean. They put out so much information that they don't even know sometimes. So basically what I did was I shaped her mindset by one little phrase that he said that no one was paying attention to. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that was a really big light bulb moment for me that really went a long way. And she never looked bad again. She never looked bad again. We completely shaped her mindset to be much stronger than she was. And it was just that one little phrase.
It's incredible. It's incredible. You technically could have gotten that from an audit or a spectator spot because it was just a matter of like listening, and the working aspect of it wasn't. Yeah, it's wow.
Yeah, it's really crazy, So you have questions on your end? People asking you, Blake? We got some questions.
Yeah, you want to know what?
We got quite a few people in here.
Let me go ahead and grab Lindsay's cell phone because I just realized that I'm probably not going to be able to grab the ones from the post unless. What's up, Otto? I see you, Supreme Canine. Give me a second.
Yeah, I got Facebook questions here. We'll go over. Okay. Awesome. Hey, Lana. Denise. Hey, Nick. How are you guys? Hello, Lisa. Lisa, thanks so much for sharing the stuff you've been sharing. I love it. Makes me so happy. Hello, Chrissy, Megan, Anita, Hugo from France. Hugo, I've been to France once. I was fortunate enough to go to Paris on the government too. I went for free in the spring. It was amazing. Hey, Rob, how you doing, buddy? Tyler, Bill, I haven't had a drink in a couple of weeks, and a new client brought me a nice new bottle of Peach Crown Royal yesterday. So I'm drinking a little on the lighter side, but sipping it very nice. It's delicious. Hey, Kevin, Stephanie, Chrissy. Hey, Eric, how are you, buddy? Rick, Noel, Terry, Jim Cruz, Mexico City. Jim, eat some good food for me, brother. I'd love to make it down to Mexico City. Hey, Todd, how are you, pal? Yeah, so we're trying.
Do you have any plans to come back to New York?
You know what? Our families are still there, and my wife really wants to see her parents. We would have come up much sooner if it wasn't for this whole thing. I was supposed to do a combat vet seminar with Nelson Hodges, but the wife and kids really asked me not to go. They were just, and I get it. I hated canceling on Nelson for that, but they were just, my sister-in-law is a PA up there in New York, and so she kind of saw the worst end of it, and she's not one to take things serious that aren't serious, and she was, they didn't go on vacation with us this year or nothing, so the wife and kids asked me not to go, so I didn't. But we'll definitely, I got to come back.
I actually canceled. So I was attending. I've been attending some of Nelson's stuff recently, and had plans to do 2 more things with Nelson this year. Had to cancel that. Had to cancel all my seminars that I teach, and it's interesting times. Really interesting times.
Yeah, I had to cancel a few too. And Nelson's a really good dude. I like. He's a real interesting fella. I just like sitting down and talking to him.
Dude, he's got some stories.
Yeah.
He's got stories. Some stories that can't be repeated, but he's got some stories, man.
He's an interesting fella. You got questions on your end, Blake?
I do. Yes. So the first one comes from Carla Meow, and it's, what's the most innovative? Yeah, meow. Yeah, like a cat, kitty cat, Carla the cat. What is the most innovative application that you've seen for the e-collar? I've been working my 1-year-old Golden on it, and feel good with the basics, looking to expand her commands. I guess I'll let you handle the majority of this question. The one thing that I'll say is that for me, the most important thing is how you teach the collar before you plan on using it for other things. And one of the things that I for the ways that we're using it is really understanding the difference between escape and avoidance. And on a very fundamental level, the way that you are teaching the remote, you can teach it in a way that the dog views as direction, where the remote can actually motivate a dog into a behavior, or you can be the type of person that uses it just to correct. Now, there might be some applications where, like, the remote, maybe it makes sense to only use it to correct, but I personally feel that it limits you on your ability to be more versatile down the road. So if you think of escape as the teacher, it's really on a fundamental level the same way you would teach a dog how to learn the word sit. If I know that I can get the behavior, whatever I put first in the sequence will take on the meaning of that. So one of the stories that I usually tell is if you actually a good dog trainer buddy of mine who's also a scientist rents a cottage or Airbnb in the woods, all right, and he enjoys taking his dogs to the woods because in that Airbnb, his dogs can just run and his dogs are off leash trained. So in the morning, he wakes up and he lets his dogs out and they're running and he's drinking his cup of coffee. And typical for the average human that is drinking coffee, not too long after, you got to go to the bathroom, right? So end scene, and let's cut to where he is, or cut and replace. Right. Now we're in the bathroom. The gentleman is sitting on the toilet. And remember, he's in the woods. He's in a cottage, right? He looks down to the ground and he sees a spider on the floor. Now, it's not like a tarantula or anything to freak out over, but it's like kind of one of those windowsill spiders, maybe a daddy long legs, one of those spiders that if you blow on it, the spider curls up. It's like a defense mechanism, right? So he sees it and he happens to have a laser pointer on his keychain. And this guy sitting on the toilet, right? What he does is he puts the laser pointer first in the sequence, right? And it's fair to say that at this point, the laser pointer is something that a spider has never seen before, right? I don't think anyone's ever flashed a laser at this spider. He flashes the laser pointer and then he blows. Spider curls up. After a couple of seconds, the spider comes back to life. Then he flashes it and then he blows. And he repeats this process about 6 times. Around the 7th time that he flashes the laser pointer, which previously had no meaning, when he flashed it and expected or planned on blowing before he could do it, the spider curled up.
That's crazy.
So what he did was he conditioned, aka gave meaning to the laser pointer. If you think of this and you apply this to anything, if I know I can, I don't know, a food lure, my dog is super food motivated. Right. People go, what's the benefit of giving a dog or getting a dog food motivated if the dog's not going to take food outside or whatever? Let's say I want to teach something. I get a dog that can sit with a gesture. If I know that that is strong, whatever I put ahead of it before I do it will eventually take on meaning. So I can teach sit to be the word chocolate if I want. The reason I bring this up is it's the same system for the remote. you want to put the remote first in the sequence and escape to give meaning to it. And I guess you can kind of take it from here. But what I will say is that for me, as long as I teach the remote in this manner, where I give meaning to it before I plan to use it, then have at it and get creative and do whatever. Just make sure that the dog understands the remote first.
Well, lower your volume. There's feedback from.
Okay.
Did you
Yeah, let me
phone or something?
Let me do this actually. I'll do this and I will maybe put it louder over here.
Let's see. Am I still echoing? I think that's good.
Is that better here? You know, I had this on. I lowered my volume on the cell phone, but I have it on the laptop. Do you have your volume up on your cell phone?
No, it's good now. I don't hear it.
Is it good now? Okay.
Yeah, and that's great that you said that, Blake. I mean, it's perfect. And to this day, you know, if I've said it once, I've said it 10,000 times. If you teach the dog the meaning of that very foreign sensation, and you teach it in a meaningful, light, motivational way, you could be so creative and do anything you want with it. You know, I teach directionals with it. 1 tap, no command, is come to me. 2 tap is go to the left. 3 tap, go to the right. Very easy to teach. I've talked about the German Shepherd before that was peeing in the crate. There was nothing I could do to fix it. You know, I just did a podcast with the Working Dog Radio guys here recently, and I talked about it again. That blew my mind away, okay? That dog would empty its bladder the second it saw me, no matter what. Normally, I don't have a hard time fixing that. I have a way that I fix that using food and using a leash. But this dog, that worked for a day or two, and then it went back to emptying its bladder completely. I was at a loss. Everything I did failed. This was a Craigslist German Shepherd, really poorly bred and raised, awful, right? But it did train well, and it was completely conditioned to the e-collar, did great with the training. I was so desperate one day that before I walked into where the dogs stay, that's where she would pee or he would pee. Mm-hmm. What I did was I already had the e-collar on the dog. We had already done some training. I let the dog drink plenty of water, and I left him in the crate long enough that I knew he'd have a full bladder and have to go. And from inside my house, before I went out there, I started tapping on the e-collar on the dog's working level. Tap, tap, tap. That sequence as I'm walking to the door. When I opened the door and looked out, I'm still tapping. Through this whole thing, I never stopped tapping. Tap. And what happened now, when I looked out, that's when the dog normally peed and would be hunched over. Instead, this time, the dog was looking with its ears up, like waiting for the direction, waiting for the command. Like, what? What do you want? I was like, holy shit, the dog didn't pee. So I walk out. I'm walking towards my back door so that I'm not walking at the crate, but the crate's going to be at my side, right? Metal crate. I'm still tapping. I unlatch the top of the crate, just the top part, and I open the back door. I'm still tapping. As I walk back, I flip open the bottom, and I open the crate bottom, and he ran outside, and he peed outside. The dog never peed in the crate again. Never. Wow. So people were like, that's unbelievable. That's genius. I was like, no. I failed like 30 other things with this dog. But the e-collar is so versatile. And when people take the time, just like you said, to teach it so that the dog understands it, then you could use it in the most advanced or basic or unique ways that you want, because the dog gets it. Yeah. And people are still failing to realize that. Why would this dog here that came here on Prozac, so anxious that the vet said it has to be on Prozac? Why is that dog excelling with an e-collar on it? Because right away, Blake, the general public thinks the e-collar goes on and you punish it. That's what they think. Yeah. And that's where us in the dog training industry are failing. The dog training world is getting really good about understanding the proper use and the capabilities. We're getting much better. We really are. There's not a lot. Let me say that. There's still too many, but not as many people slapping on an e-collar and nailing a dog. Do they still do it? Yeah, unfortunately, there's still people. But where we're failing, the general public has no concept of how most so-called balance trainers use the e-collar. And that's what we have to do better at educating. That's what I've been, I got a couple of messages on here on the public post today from trainers that talked about their purely positive anti-e-collar friend or whatever jumping ship, and now like, oh my God, okay, this isn't what I thought, and coming over to the dark side. That's a beautiful thing. That's a great question, whoever asked that, but the sky's the limit, and we said different things and it's the same answer, but we're on the same page there. You know what I mean? You got another one there, buddy?
Yeah. Let's see. A lot of people looking forward to this. Can't wait. Top trainer combo. Hope I don't miss it. Let's see. Here's one from Alice Topia. Any recommendations on exercise / what to do to build trust and relationship with an insecure and fearful dog? I have an 8-year-old, possibly older, mixed dog who is insecure, fearful, with redirected aggression. To date, he still hates the collar. He still hates the leash. He will bite. I'm assuming that bite means when you try to like reach to put it on and stuff like that. We started to change things at home since last October, establishing structure, setting rules, boundaries, space, structured walks, leash communication. I have only limited tool, aka the slip leash, and sometimes things progress, sometimes things regress. He's very sensitive. Sometimes I'm unsure whether he's ready for more or not.
That's tough because you need so much more information to understand. But the trend with a question like that from people usually seems to mean they're trying to do a little too much too soon. A little too focused on tools and obedience instead of spending time and building the dog up. Again, I go back to this dog because she's the one that's here. Mm-hmm. I've used more corrections on this dog than probably any dog I've ever had. Okay. Wow. So now when I say corrections, a lot of people, if you hear that, you think harshness and punishment, and discomfort. Nothing like that. The dog just has a wide, flat collar on. So the first thing I did was put a wide, flat leather collar on because she came with your typical flat collar, very loose, can slip out of it, and any kind of pressure, she's going to hurt her trachea, right? Mm-hmm. She's a coonhound mix, coonhound Chesapeake Bay Retriever. Okay. Very coonhound dominant. The nose is unbelievably obsessive, and she's extremely powerful. Just like Tally. So with her owners, we can't have it. She's going to pull them down and get into trouble. And for me, just to get her to walk nicely on a leash, it took a good 18 minutes of straight up battling. Back and forth, our fighting, nose to the ground, pulling. It was very, very tough, and then wanting to go after things. And so it was constant leash corrections, trying to send her information. But there was one time that made a really big difference. When I started conditioning the e-collar, I knew I wasn't going to stick to it for long. I just wanted to see how she reacted and lay a little foundation about the week mark or so, week to 8 days, I don't know. And she was doing really well. Took to the e-collar well. Conditioning was going very, very well, okay? She was getting it. No confusion, no nothing. When we went out later on, second, third, fourth session, whatever it was, very short session, she works very low numbers, 3 and 4 on a mini educator, right? But at one point, even though she was knowing it pretty well now and responding beautifully, at one point there was something on the ground she was ready to smell. And so with the working level, and I'm really slow. I normally don't even correct dogs with the e-collar when they're here, right? This is a whole different case. And so at one point she was so fixated, completely blew off the leash pressure and completely blew off the working level e-collar. I bumped it up to a 16. Now, 16 is still real low. I can't feel that. I don't think I could feel that on my testicles. I haven't tried it. But 16 is very low. But Blake, to her, that was like, holy shit, why didn't you just say so? She flipped around and she came flying and she was like, okay, my bad. I'll do what you ask. Yeah. And from that moment on, everything changed. Like she really took direction very well from there and with a great attitude. because she's so used to getting her way and doing what she wants when she wants. Sometimes when you take a dog like that and you just let them understand it's not going to happen anymore, you know.
Yeah.
But when the question that you just asked, if you watch someone like that, a lot of times they focus on the obedience, the commands, and the tools. But when they're standing there, the dog is moving away from them constantly, pulling away from them or crowding their space, and they don't address that stuff first. And
Yeah.
for me, that's where I have to address that stuff. So a
Yeah.
lot of times, I got the dog here. It may be 20 minutes of me standing there just bringing the dog back without saying or asking for anything until the dog realizes, okay, he's in control. I can't leave. Then the dog sits there and it looks at you or it lays down. And so with questions like that, and I have a ton of those same type questions too, unfortunately, it always goes back to the same thing. You have to go back to basics. Make believe the dog's an 8-week-old puppy. What would you do for an 8-week-old puppy? Go back like that the dog can't be trusted with any freedom and it's constant management, and start from the ground up. You'll never fail that way. It's always going to make things a little better,
Yeah. Yeah. I would, I think that's great advice. I would probably try to focus on whatever it is that you were doing, Alice. You're doing it in a way where there is a clear way for the dog to be successful and a clear way for the dog to win. If the thing that you were doing or that you were asking for, whether it's obedience or whether it's not obedience and it's just hanging out with the dog or whatever it is, if it's not a clear path for the dog to realize, oh, this is how I can be successful, then we probably need to tone it down a little bit. So the goal is, like, I always want to push the nervous, fearful dog, but I want to do it in a way the dog feels that they can actually be successful. Because if you're pushing, and am I still echoing here?
No, you're good on my end.
Okay, cool. If you're pushing, but you're doing it in a way where the dog feels like there is no path to victory, now we're just having these experiences which start shutting the dog down more and more and more. So listen, don't get me wrong. We are going to push you, but I'm going to push you in a way where you know where that path is. So if you need to go back to making it easy for the dog to be successful, then go ahead and do that. And then little by little push. I want my direction and you want your direction to not be, when you're giving it, like eye roll, like a daughter or something, like rules. Rules. I hate when this guy tells me what to do. I don't want the eye roll. I want my direction to be viewed as a cheat sheet to how you can be successful at life. When I'm giving you direction, you should be like, that's like you looking over at like the student who's like the genius in the class, and you know that every answer on that kid's paper is right. If I'm showing you the answer, if I'm giving you the direction, I want you to eat it up. So we need to make sure that our direction is viewed that way in the eyes of the dog. And a lot of that starts on a very fundamental, basic level, just like Larry said, going back to basics and showing the dog that when they follow your direction, they can win. Because that sets you up for the more advanced stuff when you have to push. Listen, I'm giving you direction and I know it's challenging and I know you don't want to do it. But when have I failed you before?
Yeah, I love that. I agree. I couldn't agree more. And I like to cheat to help the dog win in the beginning too.
Yeah.
I will cheat to set the dog up to win, And the simplest thing, let's say we're teaching the place command, just like with a client yesterday. A lot of dogs don't want to go on a place board. They fear it, and I tell them, cheat with your body, set it up so the dog can't fail. So if you're walking and the dog's on your left side, if you're walking and you stay so tight to the right of the place board that you don't have to do anything but keep walking, the dog has no choice but to hit it. And then you reward that. You're helping the dog. You're cheating. You're using your body or anything you have to make that dog successful and build that confidence. And in the same token, when the dog gets stronger and is doing well, later on down the road, then I cheat to help the dog fail and make the mistakes. I encourage the mistakes because they learn a lot more from the mistakes than they do when they get something right the first time. The same thing with the owners. Absolutely. Yeah, that's why I love the people making the mistakes. Make them fail 100%. Go ahead, because you're going to learn when we get it right then. But I love your answer too. I agree with it completely.
It's pretty interesting because you hinted at this at the first the first part of your answer is that and I kind of worded a little bit this way, is every now and then once you've spent the time to show the dog how to win, and once winning works for them, and your direction is always the answer to how they can be successful in these situations, sometimes the best thing that you can do for a dog is let them experience what happens when they don't take your direction.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
that's like, think of it like a child. And I don't remember where I heard this from. It had to have been Tyler at one point. Like, you know what's tough sometimes is you learn from so many people's
Yeah.
like podcasts and seminars and this and conversations at ISCP that you're like, shit, where did I get this? In some way, shape, or form, we've spun it. But like, just like a child, sometimes the kid, I'm telling you, don't touch the flame is hot.
That's right.
Sometimes you'll get a kid that goes, you know what? Got it. Dad said don't touch the flame. But there's some kids that need to touch the flame to go, don't touch the flame. Let me see. Oh, shit, that is hot. Because when they get to touch the flame, what happens, they go, you know what? Dad said not to. The next time you're in a restaurant and something's going crazy and you go, hey, son or daughter, you might want to have a seat. They're probably going to sit because last time they didn't listen, it didn't pay off.
Well, that's exactly with this dog going to a number 16. That's what you just said is exactly what we did.
Yep.
And that is something that Bart said to me years ago. He said, sometimes you just have to show the power. And it was, again, something so simple. And it's true. You know, you be fair, you give the dog a chance, but sometimes they have to understand this isn't a negotiation, you know?
That's what I love about Bart is he's so direct, and part of it is because of like his language. He's from Belgium. Yeah. He's so direct and straightforward that a lot of his quotes are just money. Sometimes you got to show him the power. Like it's just so simple and straightforward, but it's so true, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, you know. All right, yeah, that's you know, someone asked an interesting question. I'll have to see it. I'll have to ask it here.
Yeah, let's get some on your end there.
Let's see. This is Michaela Evans. What do you think the minimum amount of days should be required for a daycare and train or board and train should be working on basic obedience only? So sit, down, stay, heel, recall, off, place, all the basics, the basics. You know?
Should I start off with this one?
Go ahead. Yep.
I think this is my personal belief, and obviously, Larry, you can always disagree with something. I think that's what makes these lives great is, and I have a feeling you'd agree with this though. I think one of the problems with the dog training industry today, specifically the pet dog world, is that it's geared too much around putting a time frame on things. And I think that the time frame is not fair for the trainer to go, okay, well, shit, I guaranteed that this is going to happen. And I gotta listen, I know, dog, you're not ready for this, but you only have 5 days left and we got to get this done. And it's definitely not fair to the dog to hold every single dog to the same standard. Now, let me ask you a question, because I know you work out, but I also know that you love your food.
Yeah.
So would it be fair to have the same time frame to get you ready for, I don't know, like some fitness goal? Right. If you were in shape and kind of working out and eating right, like that time frame, you could say, oh yeah, you'll be ready in a week, versus who knows, maybe COVID, vacation, everything, you're eating well, you're drinking well, you're not eating the best, you know what I mean? Right. Like you're slacking. And now I say you got to be ready in a week. Your starting point and the dog's starting point might vary based on where they are. And it's really, really tough to say that a dog that comes in, let's say food motivated, has done some training before this, and I go, you know what, in a week, we could do some really good stuff with you because you already have these things down, versus a dog who's super shut down, super fearful, won't take food, poops the moment you see him, to say that, hey, in a week, we're going to have you doing the same thing that other dog is doing. It's just not fair.
Yeah. And time as a trainer is your best tool. Time makes a huge difference. Yeah. I used to do 2-week board and trains. I don't do it anymore. It's like, just like Blake said, it's too much pressure on the trainer, the dog, on everybody. And the difference that I see just in the third week compared to week 2 is tremendous. It's like a different dog.
Yeah.
But I'm not a big science guy. I don't talk about that stuff. I don't talk about quadrants, and I don't discuss that stuff with clients. But in reality, it takes about 21 days for a dog to really get comfortable and learn something and start making changes. Okay.
Yeah.
It's why most bodybuilding programs, if you compete in any kind of fitness competition, no matter what kind of shape you're in, most programs are about 12 weeks long. That's how long it takes to completely change your physique. You mentioned a great point with the working out and fitness. I'm a huge boxing fan. Okay. Huge boxing fan. Some of the greatest that ever did it were guys that stayed in good shape all the time, in the Roberto Duran Sugar Ray Leonard first fight. It was an incredible fight, and Roberto Duran beat his ass. A younger Roberto Duran's one of the baddest dudes that ever walked the planet. Okay. The second fight is the famous one, the No Mas fight, when he quit. All right. What a lot of people don't realize about that, Sugar Ray Leonard, who I always despise because Marvin Hagler's my idol.
Okay.
But Sugar Ray Leonard's a really smart guy. And what happened after Roberto Duran went and beat the golden child of the United States Olympics, the biggest face in boxing at the time, like the up-and-coming superstar Sugar Ray Leonard, well-spoken, clean-cut, everybody loved him. When he beat him, Roberto Duran went on a binge and partied and just celebrated life. And Roberto Duran's a big, happy guy who brings everyone into his happiness and shares everything he has. You know what I mean? And so what they did with that next fight was, here's the rematch, and it was very fast, very quick. They wanted it done because they knew he couldn't get in shape like he was for the first fight. You have to have time on your side when you're dealing with these dogs. I don't put a time limit on things. I take my time, because I like to be able to take the first 3 days of doing nothing, spending time with the dog, getting to know the dog. I want that dog to start to believe that it's my dog and it lives here. Okay. Mm-hmm. No dog ever sits in here sad thinking about where it came from or its home or missing its family. They don't do it. You would think that they're my dog. And that takes a little bit of time. And if you're doing a 2-week board and train, you can't take 3 days in the beginning to do nothing and get to know the dog. It's push, push, push. And it's not cohesive to learning for the animal. It's just not, but yeah, we're definitely on the same page here. Great question, Michaela.
No, I think that's great. I think if you're looking at like getting ready for the big fight, what it really requires is you have to be conditioned, which means you have to be fundamentally sound. And a lot of times that's what sets you up for the big fight. And the big fight with the dog is working in the problematic areas, working with the owners and getting to that place. So you have to get them conditioned. You have to get them fundamentally sound. And where the starting point is for that dog is always going to vary. If you're trying to get someone ready for a triathlon, okay, well, are you an out of shape athlete? Or are you someone that doesn't even know how to ride a bike, swim, or jog?
Yeah.
You can't put a time frame on the same thing for that person. So
and it's the same thing. Her follow-up, Michaela's follow-up was how long should a training session be? And it's the same thing, Michaela. All dogs are different.
Yeah.
If you're working a hyped up Belgian Malinois that wants to work, you can get 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and the dog could be loving it through the whole thing. But a lot of pet dogs that me and Blake see, 10 minutes, they're like, oh, this is enough. I'm done. There's no more focus there, and you're not making much progress anymore, So again, it's all dog related. You know what I mean? It really is. Go ahead, Blake. Get another one.
Let's see what we got here. We have Geeks Art, and also on my live, who was it? High Fives for Canines, who I drink your coffee out of your coffee mug like every day, FYI. But you had said hi. Tyler says the same thing about his son going out with his winter boots. So that was in relation to touching the flame. And this is a story. I tell this story to my clients. His son Max didn't want to put his boots on, and he was trying to throwing a tantrum. Young, terrible Tuesday. I don't want to put my boots on, but I want to play in the snow. And he was doing all this stuff for a while, trying to convince him. And at one point, he goes, "What the hell am I doing? I'm a dog trainer." He goes, let him touch the flame. Letting him touch the flame was, okay, you want to go outside with no boots? Go ahead.
Yeah.
And very quickly, he learned, you want to go outside, you want to put your boots on. You know,
That's it. Yeah, I've been there many times. By the way, too, not off the subject, your daughter is absolutely beautiful.
Thank you, man.
And I lived through you because it seems like we were just there. We were you and your wife yesterday, it seems like.
We talk about you guys all the time and seeing what you guys have in the family, and you guys have such a wonderful family, and it just looks like
thanks. Blake, I swear people used to say that to me. I'm like, geez, everyone with a kid's an expert, and they all tell you that. But you know what? I'm in the gym with my daughter yesterday. She's walking around the gym working out, and I'm literally just staring at her, just devastated. Like, how did this happen? You know, and I'm looking around and I'm waiting to see the first guy that looks at her. And I'm thinking, I'm going to wind up beating someone half to death in my own gym. It's a whole different mindset. And it's like just a flash, you know. I told her, don't go away to college. I'm retiring in 6 months from the other job. I'll homeschool you for college. You just stay here. You don't have to go any place. So, you don't have to go any place. So you enjoy that beautiful little girl that you have every single. But I know you guys are. I live through you guys. I watch it all. I love it.
She's something, man. She's a character. You know, I tell you what, it changes your whole, at least for me, my entire outlook on life. I can probably tell you. So I watched this video the other day, and it was an old video. It was like maybe the kid was 12 years old, 11 years old, and he's at a baseball game. And a younger lady gets up in front of him who's older than him. Maybe she's a teenager, maybe 15, maybe 16, around there. And she's a good-looking girl. Like, she's, you know, getting to reaching maturity. And she gets up, and he's a younger kid. And he looks at her, and he kind of puts on this face and is like, and all this stuff that I can promise you without a doubt that if I had a son, my attitude would have been like, yeah, attaboy, go after her, go get her. But because I have a daughter, when I watched this video, the first thing that came to my mind was like, where are his parents and who is raising this child? Like, that's just your perspective just changes.
I'm a different parent for my daughter and for my son. I'm embarrassed to say, with my daughter, everything was proper. With my son, I'm not. And and the more inappropriate I am, the harder he laughs, and my wife gets so mad. I never did that with my daughter, but with my son, yeah. Listen. All kidding aside, all of us that do this and get paid to work with dogs, it's a true blessing. It's the greatest job in the world. But when it comes right down to it, when you have kids, it's the only thing that matters. It's the only thing that truly matters. Everything else is just icing on the cake. You have a healthy family, you have healthy kids, you have happy kids. You're winning. You're already winning at the game. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, she's absolutely awesome, man.
Well, cheers. I appreciate that. Cheers to our family.
To our kids, man, for sure.
Yeah. I got a little bit left here. I'm due for some more. Lynn's, if you can hear me. I heard her. I heard it in the background, but it went on mute. So she heard us talking about our daughter. She must have muted it.
I had a signal for my wife. I said, hey, babe. When I say, hey, babe, or Steph, I said, can you get me the Crown Royal out of the freezer? And she kind of, she's working. She works a lot. So she did. But I think there must be a shortage. She kind of shorted me. Like, there wasn't a full glass, not even. Oh, she's going to pace me.
That's so funny. So oh shoot, I must have somehow. Are you still live in the Instagram right now, or did that cut out for you?
You're frozen. Yeah.
Okay. Give me a sec here.
You know what? They have an hour limit. You have to restart that.
That's what it is. Okay. Let me close this out and I'll start that back up.
Yeah. I'll find another question here on Facebook. That's why you young people, you like this Instagram. It's limitations, man. Limitations.
Listen, literally the first thing that came to my mind when you didn't post the picture that I sent you for this, and then when I saw it up, I go, his daughter helped him 100%.
No, I tried really hard. I failed several times, and then I finally figured it out. I did. All right, let's see.
That's so funny.
Man, a lot of barking questions.
Isn't it something?
All right, here's one. Jackie. All right, Jackie. I follow both of you guys closely and use a lot of what you do. I would be interested in a healthy discussion about place training. I know Blake does a lot of duration with place, and Larry, you don't. Would you? I would love to hear a discussion on that. Go ahead, buddy.
All right. Well, place is an interesting, call it a command, call it a tool, call it anything else. I look at place, and what I see is you can use it so many different ways, and how you use it for one dog can be entirely different than how you use it for another. For example, I can use place to actually create drive, build confidence, and actually even create an anxious dog on place. I don't think I would want to create an anxious dog, but you can do it. And then I can use place to help a dog find how to settle and relax and have it represent that in an area where normally they would be stressed. A lot of times what I have my clients do is, a lot of times place is something that is used for my clients so that they can start to get on the path of being successful in areas where they failed miserably. Now, most of the time when we're looking at the average pet dog household, you have a dog that is pushy, that is rude, that when you're eating dinner is all in here and over here, and when you're trying to work on your jigsaw puzzle is all in your space and everything. And the truth is that if you can get a dog to be respectful of your space when it's not time to engage and it's not time to play, and the dog is not getting into trouble elsewhere, I kind of don't care what your dog is doing. But a lot of these dogs will get into trouble if they're not being supervised. A lot of these dogs will be in your space and then maybe even be possessive or start to kind of guard and everything. So when I'm starting the process of building the relationship and getting the dog to start to respect the owner, a lot of times I say, hey, listen, if you're asking a dog to just be respectful of your space and they're looking lost once they're not where they normally are, in your lap, at your feet, under you, and keep in mind, this is a dog that is struggling with things, right? This is not a dog that is okay with things.
Right.
Man, if the dog's away from you and it doesn't know what to do and it's struggling, don't leave the dog in limbo. Teach the dog, hey, when I'm doing this, you can choose to relax here. And sometimes if you don't have the dog do that, they're going to get into trouble. So at least there's something they can do where they know how to relax. But ultimately, down the road, I don't really care if your dog is placed as long as they're going to be respectful. So how you go about place is really more what is important. The thing that I find that bums me out a little bit is, although I do use place frequently, there are a lot of people that use place very differently than the way that we do. And it's done in a very forceful way, and you're forcing duration, and place sucks. And what they're striving to do is teach a dog how to relax, but they're doing it in a way that is making the dog far more stressed unintentionally. So again, it boils down to how you go about the exercise is more important than the exercise itself. So that's kind of what I have to say about that.
Absolutely. And Jackie, I know exactly what you're talking about because I've preached so much about how I use place as an activation instead of dog jail. And it's because of what Blake just mentioned. When I see so many people using it as doggy jail in a bad thing for the dog to do, I try to go against the grain and show people you don't have to do that. I want the dog, just like Blake said, to be able to interact with your family. If the doorbell rings, if you have people over, I want the dog to be able to be self-sufficient and interact with your family and not have to be on a place. But with that being said, a lot of your everyday average dog owners, they're not going to achieve that. Even if you achieve it for them when you're teaching the dog, they're going to go back to a lot of their old ways. So it can come in really handy for that everyday dog owner. If you just give them that one thing to really focus on and work on that's going to help their life, then I'm all for it. You know, it's kind of what Blake touched on. Yeah. With that being said, Every dog that I work with, no matter what the issues, I treat it like a working dog. I want to build as much activity as possible. Okay. I like to be able to send the dog away from me with speed to get to a mark or a place and come back to me for a reward. I
Love
like
that.
doing that. But at the same time, imagine if you can get a dog, let's say you get a dog with a bite history and that guards its toys and its food. And I'm saying that because I'm giving you an example of a dog I had here a while, a smaller dog, medium-sized dog. He came down here with a bite history on human aggression, but he was also very aggressive over anything he controlled, his food, his toys. Well, I got that dog to bite very quickly, okay? People thought that was a big mistake. I didn't. Because when you teach a dog to bite and you teach a dog to play, and you give it a purpose, but you teach a dog to give it up too and get rewarded, it does wonders. And it did do wonders with him. But now think about if you can send a dog with speed to go away from you, knowing that you have a reward, to hit that place, to come back to get the reward. But then the very next time, send it with speed down to a place, and now you have to lay down and settle down on there. Think about how powerful a training tool that is in the concept of the dog actually learning. And so what we do, what a lot of people do, trainers and dog owners, we limit the basics to just the basics. And so I try not to do that. I switch it up and I integrate all the basic commands and I try to do creative things with them to keep the dog learning and going. So all the old videos that you see with Luca, some of the videos I put out there with him, I'd get a lot of attention and people would be fascinated. They think it was the greatest thing in the world. And I would say to people, now, tell me one thing that he did that was difficult. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, what did he do in that video? Down, sit, come, heel, place, all the basics. That's all he did. He just did it very well. And we intertwine them in different combinations for the dog to really get to work and express himself and love what he's doing. But in reality, if you watch any of those videos, it's all basic obedience, just done really well. And so with my clients, the ones that really excel are the ones that continue to work on the basic obedience under all kinds of distractions, including the place command. That's where you're going to find your most success. But if you take your dog and it's always sit, down, place, come, and that's what the dog lives with, you're not going to have a dog very motivated to do anything. But when the dog doesn't know what's going to come out of your mouth or what kind of reward's going to be presented or when it's going to be presented, they're always interacting with you until you tell them, hey, go lay down. Now it's time to settle down. You know what I mean? So I think there was another question on here too. I'll have to find it, that wants to know our similarities and differences, but I think we're a lot more similar than we are different for sure, you know. But and you know, I remember when I first started watching you train, I started commenting on your stuff. I just liked what you did right from the start, period.
And likewise, and I've always appreciated the support and always, you know, watch. And I think one of the cool things is even with people that are doing things similar, they are doing things different. And at the very least, they're the way things are being described or the way things are being worded, sometimes that can go, oh, you know what? I do that, but I never thought of it that way. And boom, light bulb moment. So that's, you know, I really, whenever I get a chance to watch your work, I'm always trying to chime in and watch and see how you answer a question or how you worked with that dog. And it's beautiful. And that's how it should be. You know, the cool thing about you is that there's no ego. And I love that. You're just a down to earth guy. You enjoy dogs. You're passionate about like providing for your clients, providing for the dog, and there's no ego. And I think that's hard to come by, man. It really is.
I appreciate that. You know what, Blake? I make too many mistakes to have an ego.
You and me both. You and me
I make
both.
too many mistakes to have an ego. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think I remember one of the first times I saw you. I want to say you were working with an aggressive Yorkie, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, wow.
You know. But I was so impressed that you were actually showing the work. That's what caught my attention. You know, I don't give a damn if someone fails miserably and everything goes bad. If you're actually showing people what you're doing and trying to figure out on your own, that takes big balls, and that lets people know you're not hiding anything.
Yeah.
And you did a tremendous job. And I was like, man, this young fella, I like this guy. And then I remember Adam Katz, we were talking. He's like, that guy needs his own show. Adam really likes you. He's like, I get it. He's got a great personality about him too. But I tell people every time I talk to someone, like I 500 videos I have out, or 600 videos, whatever it is, there's not a single video of mine where I don't see a ton of mistakes I did wrong, know. And
you know what's the cool thing is, some people ask me, they go, well, how come you don't take those down? And I go, nah, man, it's important for people to see the growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There was one video I did years ago with an aggression case, 2 dogs in the same home. It was bad enough to where I said, I can't post this. Like it was, it looked like I never trained a dog before. And my own dog all of a sudden wasn't listening. It was helping me. I was like, it was bad. But I said, I can't do that, because I always say, just show it all. You know what I mean? And years ago when some people started following me, I remember saying, you know what, I think I'll get some nice camera equipment and do some editing stuff. And people hit the roof. They were like, no, don't do that. Just keep doing it. So to this day, it's still my iPhone and I barely know how to use it.
Well, you want to know what? You have something that's working in your favor, because these iPhones are getting so good now.
Yeah, they are.
Quality photos, and it's absolutely incredible. It almost defeats the purpose of
crazy, right? Yeah.
I'll show you what I have going on though, because I do want to share and post content. Even this, I'll show you what I got going on right now. So just flipping this around, I do have a camera, because who knows, I'll send this to you, I'll do this, and there might be, even if it's a 2-minute segment where you say something that maybe you worded it perfectly, or I say something and it can end up being something beautiful that is more for the people than it is for us, because a lot of times we're regurgitating the same stuff in some way.
Exactly. You ever feel bad about doing that? Because I know I do.
You know what I try to do is I try to think of it not much different than a comedian. So I've been watching a lot of Kevin Hart and like Dave Chappelle's and Jerry Seinfeld's and all these people that are these comedians that a lot of times what they do is they go on the road and they pop up at random hole in the wall comedy shows, and really what they're doing is they're working on certain jokes. And they're trying to see the response, and they're trying to word it differently, and they're trying to see like the feedback that they're getting, and they're just perfecting and perfecting and perfecting. When they feel that they have it good, they take it on the road for like their big show that gets filmed. So a lot of what I'm doing, and COVID has really helped me with this, is when you're working with clients for the first time, what we're doing is our first session was virtual. You're regurgitating the same stuff, but you get better at like plug and play. And someone's over here and you go, we're going to talk about this, but it's going to segue to this, and it's going to do this, and it's going to do that. And really what I found is like, I'm constantly cycling between these 4 things, more or less. The relationship that you build with your dog is everything.
Yeah.
The relationship is everything. Now, what goes into a relationship? And for a while, I'm like, all right, there's a lot of things that make this up. It's a puzzle, but let's look at what goes into it, and let's look at the things that are common. So one of the things is outlet. The outlet that you provide for your dog is really, really important. But how you go about the outlet matters, because you can run your dog to death and not take advantage of how you're running, playing, doing whatever it is that dog. But like that could be a very big piece of the puzzle for what you're doing. Like, for example, if I have a dog that has extreme prey drive, and all that my dog knows is that in the morning we play fetch 24/7 because you love it, 24/7, 24/7, 24/7. And then you're at home. And then when I get home from work, we play fetch, we play fetch, we play fetch. And then in some situations, I take my dog for a walk. But the thing that I'm struggling with hardcore is when we're on a walk, you are lunging for squirrels and lunging, and everything is prey driven. It's not that fetch is wrong, but the way that we're going about fetch, the way that we're going about the play, we're not taking advantage of it. So how you go about the outlet matters. If I have a dog that is afraid and shut down, and I go, you know what, I need to exercise this dog, he needs an outlet so he can relax. True, But if I'm riding my bike with a dog and they are exercising in flight, in fearful flight the entire time, I'm not going about that exercise the right way. So I might want to go into riding the bike in when you're just learning to trot and I'm slowing you down because that's what you need. So how can I use the outlet for what you need, which might be different from this other dog? These are all things that are important. You look at that fetch thing. If all that I do is play this and play this and play this, it becomes what you represent. Oh, when am I gonna chase this prey-driven related activity, this fetch? And then when we go on a walk, when are we gonna see these squirrels and these little dogs? The outlet is actually hurting me when I could be using that to help me. So outlet is one important thing for a relationship that I have to be smart with. Okay, how can we provide this dog and these humans with an outlet that is going to be helpful for what they need at this stage in their relationship? That's one thing. The other thing that we have to look into is routine and context. There is a lot of times where the routine of our day is not helping us with the areas that we're struggling with. The routine is important. And what I find is that the average pet dog owner has a dog that is not a bad dog. They just have a dog that is contextually inappropriate. So what that means is, like, let's say my daughter loves playing tag. Tag is a great game. You're gonna get your exercise, you're gonna run, you're gonna play, you're gonna get tired, you're gonna make friends. But if you're trying to play tag in a classroom when a teacher is trying to teach, contextually inappropriate. So tag is not wrong, but the time that you're trying to play tag is wrong. And you have a lot of dogs that are trying to do things at inappropriate times. So the routine and the context and us being able to provide and teach our dogs essentially time and place is another thing that is so important that goes into the relationship. Those are two things that are important. But what I find most is that if you start to create rules, and you talk about this a lot, how you live with your dog in the house matters. Right. If you start to create rules and structures and boundaries inside the house, not from the point of view of being a dictator, not from just strict, but really what it's doing is it's allowing you to assess and what I call fail safely. Let's say we create a rule, and it's not always a matter of whether you mind it or not. Like when I say you, I mean the owner. It's not a matter of whether you mind it or not, but let's just create a rule, for example, that says, you know what, we're going to create a rule and a boundary that says no bed, no couch, and I don't know, no following me into the bathroom. It's not that following me into the bathroom matters. It's not that even, and obviously Nelson will tell you different, like, listen, none of this, but maybe that stuff doesn't matter. But let me ask you a question. If your dog loves you, because this is what everyone says, oh, my dog loves me and this and that. Okay, if your dog loves you and you create a rule that says no couch and no bed, will your dog listen to you? And if all of a sudden you're creating a rule and it's easy for your dog to follow, beautiful. Then we can move on to other things. But more often than not, when people are struggling outside, on the walk, off leash, whatever, this and that, they have a dog that is living a life of they can do what they want, when they want, everywhere else. And then when the time comes that the human needs something different, the dog is like, what do you mean do something? I always do what I want when I want. So if you can create a rule that says don't do this right now and the dog doesn't listen, we're looking at one of two things. And these are the remaining two things that go into the relationship for me. Either you're asking your dog something that it has no idea what you're asking of it, right? So that's a communication error. Communication is not clear because you're trying to create a rule that says no couch, no bed, and you still find your dog on the couch or bed. You still find your dog struggling. That's a communication error because your dog has no idea what you're asking of it. Or your dog 100% knows what you were asking and is choosing not to prioritize your information. If you have a dog that is not prioritizing the direction that you're giving, then that is also a different side of the relationship issue, which goes into status and the role that the dog plays within the relationship and the role that the human plays within the relationship. Now, a lot of people, they get all up in arms over this. They're like, oh, well, dogs are not pack animals and this and that, blah, blah, blah. Listen, dogs are not pack animals because they don't hunt systematically the way that wolves do, right? But they are pack oriented, and so are humans. If we want to get rid of semantics, let's call it what it is. If we were talking about fish, we would call it a school. If we were talking about birds, I would call it a flock. If I was talking about humans, I would call it a family. If I was talking about a business, I would call it a company. Status exists even with humans. That is why we have tiers. That is why we have managers. That is the very reason why when you look at someone like Nelson, who talks about space and talks about elevation having value, let's take the human's perspective. Why is it that the average CEO of a multi-billion dollar company usually has an office space that is larger than the rest of their employees? Not only is it larger than the rest of their employees, it is often on the top floor. Elevation, that is status. Having a larger office space is 100%, whether we realize it or not, this is universally ingrained in us, a reflection of who that individual is within the pack, or in this case, the company.
Absolutely.
And then we can, I can go into this forever. I'm not going to, this is not my show here, but status is a very real thing. And how we are allowed to enter one another's space based on who you represent matters. But when you have a dog that can go into your office, in and out, and all of these things, man, I can go down this wormhole. It's all stuff that you already know. Status is a thing. So the other part of relationship is also status. So now you have status, relationship roles. You have clear communication. Those are the two things that we see are the biggest issues on average. And then you have your outlet. How you go about the outlet matters. And then on the other side of that, you have your context and your time and place. You focus on these four things and you will have a phenomenal relationship with your dog.
I absolutely love everything you said, especially about playing fetch and prey drive. Like,
yeah, talk to me about this.
You're so dead on there, Blake, because we send such mixed signals to the dogs and people don't realize it. So they'll get to chuck it out and throw their dog up and get them fired up over and over and over, and then get pissed when they chase the rabbit. So I don't even have to repeat that because everything you said was right on. Now, when you talk about the pack and everything, there was nothing you said in there that I don't agree with 100%. And I've been screaming that from the rooftops forever. The one thing you said was about dogs, how they don't hunt like wolves. Let me tell you a little story. I was just telling Randy Hare this a couple weeks ago. First of all, I started my career on the Mexican border, okay, Douglas, Arizona. If you ever saw the stray dog problem down on the Mexican border, it's bad. It's really, it's very sad. And I used to drive around with a 50-pound bag of dog food, feeding dogs all the time. But the things I got to watch, how they interact, was fascinating. But there's one instance here in Kentucky that blew my mind. Several years back, I'm a big deer hunter. I spend a lot of time in the woods in the fall, okay? That's my escape. Several years ago, we had an issue where all the deer were disappearing. It's like they up and moved and vanished. It was the worst deer season I had ever seen. And out where I hunt, there's a lot of deer. What happened was there was a group of dogs. I think there were 7 dogs, farm dogs, that would get together during the day and basically acted like feral dogs all day long. They would hunt like a pack of dogs, except not like coyotes. We have a coyote problem here. Coyotes kill a lot of animals, but they kill animals to eat. They only kill what they're going to eat. Okay, they don't kill for fun. These dogs were starting to have a good time killing everything they could, right?
Wow.
And so one day I'm out, there's 2 farms, 600 acres total that I hunt. And I'm kind of between farms and I'm watching this pack of 7 dogs run up this fence line. And instead of going to try to deal with it, I just watched them. And I watched them go, and they come up to this wooded area, large wooded area, with a big open crop field on each side, okay? Mm-hmm. 5 of the dogs break off to the left, and they go stand in the crop field. The 2 biggest dogs in the group break off to the right, and they come into the woods, and you could hear them barking and screaming and howling and running through the woods. And after a couple of minutes running through the woods and howling, they push out a young doe right to those other 5 dogs, and they kill the deer.
Wow.
Now, these dogs, I would watch them at the end of the day, split up and go back to the farmer's house, several different houses. It blew my mind to watch how coordinated they were. They didn't eat the deer. They didn't need to eat it. They weren't wild. They live out in the free. They had homes, But they did this all day long, and it destroyed the deer population. I mean, it was really bad. But when I talk to my clients, I'll tell some of them this story, because a lot of people, as you know, talk to their dogs way too much. And I tell them this story. And at the end, I say, do you know what the purpose of this story is? And they're like, what? I'm like, those dogs didn't say 2 words to each other. And everything was coordinated perfectly. And I also ask people, I say, do me a favor. I say, for 24 hours, don't say nothing to your dog. Not a single word. Watch what happens. You'd be blown away by the amount of messages I get. Like, I can't believe how powerful that was. Like, it's game changing for a lot of people. You know what I mean? Because for me, the behavior side is silent. It's what you do. It's what you say without words that really have the meaning to the dog.
Yeah.
The obedience is verbal. Things you're telling the dog, stupid human tricks. Come, sit down, place. Those are stupid human tricks. You know what I mean? And but I love absolutely everything you said there. And the truth is, a lot of the questions I got here have to do with reactivity and barking. It all comes down to what you addressed. Okay. If that dog is allowed to have things it wants all the time inside the home, I'm trying to answer all this in one bundle, guys. All the reactivity questions and excessive barking, all that stuff. If your dog doesn't have what Blake is talking about inside the home, if it has access to what it wants, when it wants inside the home, and then you take it out and expect it not to have reactivity when it sees a dog it wants to get to, and now the frustration is setting in because it's used to getting what it wants. And now all of a sudden it can't have what it sees. That's where that reactivity comes from. Okay. Yeah. And you are not going to fix that, at least in my opinion, in my experience, you're not going to fix that at the reactivity. You have to go back and fix that inside the home first. Yeah. Okay. And then outside the home before you go out. Does that make sense?
It makes 100% sense. Absolutely.
So back to everything you said. I think you were absolutely dead on with that. I couldn't agree more. But what you talked about with the prey drive and the fet, it's something that most people never think about. How you do those things matters. It matters.
That's it right there. That's it.
So you folks who love to play ball and throw, okay, throw that chuck it. Your dog's crazy, throw it. And when he gets 2 feet away from him, tell him to leave it or the down or the come. See what happens.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen when there's a rabbit there or a cat there or a deer there. No tools, no e-collars, no nothing. Try that. That's what's going to happen. And the other thing is, you have a problem dog. A lot of people want to exercise their dog. Well, you have a dog that's a real asshole. And what you do is you make a much fitter asshole. So you get a dog that could be a douche a lot longer when you get it in really good shape. So you got to be careful with that too. You know what I mean? So there's a lot more to this stuff, guys. You got to pay attention.
Take advantage of your outlet. Make the outlet work for you. I have somebody that goes here that goes, well, I think I have a fetch problem. Can you explain how this could be turned into a healthier outlet or be done in a better way? Make it work for you, even if it's at a very basic level. Have the dog do things and show you that your direction is how they can get what they want, and you can just expand off of that. Make it work for you, make the outlet work for you, especially if the dog wants it. That's their motivation. Show them how to get the thing that they want.
I have a video, Blake, with Luca not that long ago. I'm using an orange bumper, and I'm doing the exercise I did because of the question that you just answered and exactly of what you said with the fetch. Luca gets extremely adrenalized. He's a very driven dog. And when it comes to working or chasing a ball or anything, he goes bonkers. Okay. So anyone that pulls up that video with the orange bumper, you see I'm standing in my driveway facing the grass. There's a place board off to my right. And I'm utilizing everything to the left. So picture a triangle. And what I'm doing is I'm taking simple things he knows. I'm throwing the bumper. I'm marking it. Yes, he can go get it. When he gets down there, I'm telling him to leave it. He's looking at me waiting. I'm telling him to fetch. Sometimes allowing him to go back to the play sport. Sometimes I'm having him come to a heel. Sometimes I'm having it to come without the bumper. I'm doing many different things. But the reason I'm doing so many different things, there's no pattern. And it's the first time we're ever doing that in the video, because that forces him to listen to the words that come out of my mouth. He can't get over adrenalized. Otherwise, he can't function. So if you pay attention to him in that video, you'll see a much calmer Luca. And he's doing everything with a lot of stability and a lot calmer than he normally does, because I'm forcing him to think about what I'm asking him to do. So I'm doing different things all the time. There's no anticipation there. When you allow the dog to anticipate, if you get a high drive dog or a dog that gets over adrenalized, it's going to get worse. But if you switch things up and the dog never knows what's coming, now they have to settle down a little bit to focus on what you're telling them to do. But pull that video. I'll see if I can find it and post it. That's exact. And I think I talk about it in the video. The reason I'm doing this is because the things I'm doing forces him to listen to what I'm saying. He can't lose.
This out. Yeah, check this out, because on a very simple level for a lot of people. One, just separately, I'm a rookie because I started this IG Live, which is great, and they can hear you, but I should have chimed you in. And like, you could have been on here too. I don't know why I didn't do that. I meant to do it and I completely forgot, but whatever. It's all good. Everyone's getting value from it. This is a very common thing when the dog gets to assuming and no longer needs you because you're too predictable. So what you hear a lot is someone that thinks that they're working on sit and stay, or down and stay, and then they walk away from their dog and they go to stay, they walk away. And then when they turn, they either call their dog or they actively release their dog, which would be my yes, and the dog comes. And then they go, oh, wow, this is so great. My dog is staying and my dog is coming. And they repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. And let's say the sixth time, they tell their dog to sit, they tell their dog to stay, they walk away. And when they turn back around and plan on calling their dog is already there. Because it's predictable. It's the same thing over and over. So a lot of times, this is where the other marker, for those of you that follow what I do, the good marker, which is the success marker, it's that curveball. Because if you walk away and you turn and then you say good, a dog you might see in the very beginning go, oh, good. You're going to come to me. So when you throw that curveball in, you end up with a dog that goes, okay, shit, now I got to pay attention to this guy because he's not doing the same thing all the time. Right. That's what you want, a dog to pay attention, right? And
exactly the exact example you gave, I give all the time also. And that's why I also, sometimes I mark and the dog comes to me for the reward. Sometimes I go to the dog and mark and reward. The dog should never know. You have to do both ways. See, a lot of people take it to the extreme and they'll never mark and release the dog from a distance, thinking they'll teach them to break. That's not true. Just make sure you go to the dog and mark and reward. Do it both ways so the dog understands both ways. Yeah. You know, any dog that I work with, especially my own dogs, I want them to truly understand the command. I want them to understand it inside and out. The same way with the e-collar. The way I teach it, I want every dog to understand it inside and out, so there's no confusion, because that's where the beauty comes from, when there's no confusion there. When the dog gets it, then you can make it your own and do some pretty interesting things. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's see. All right, we got Stahara here, Stahara Marine. I have a small mixed dog that is terribly afraid of other dogs, especially big ones. When she sees one approaching, she starts pulling in the other direction. Loud noises and crowds also scare her. The moment I get her out of the yard, she is on high alert and will not take treats. What would you recommend to make her more confident? All these questions are based kind of around the same issues. You know what I mean? Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, well, the thing that I look to do, or the first thing that comes to mind, is I need to help to change the dog's perception or the way she perceives other big dogs. She's scared for a reason, and it might be legitimate, it might not be. But a lot of times the experience that a dog has from this overwhelmingly larger dog than them is a lot of dogs are pushy and rude. They don't know how to greet. They don't know how to be respectful. They don't know how to be polite because dogs that are approaching them are being influenced by the human. Go say hi, do this, constantly go, 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 go. And it goes against the dog and how they meet. So what I would probably do is one, how you go about the exposure matters. So one of the big topics today has been the how, right? How you go about exposing your dog matters because what a lot of people will do is they go, wow, my dog is afraid of big dogs. I need to expose her to more big dogs. And you're right, you do. But if the dogs that you're exposing her to are, oh, you do for refill?
Sorry, I was hoping no one heard that. She barely heard it.
That's so good.
I might get a full one out of this one.
It's so good. If the dog, where was I going with that? If the dog has this expectation, a lot of times the dogs are rude. So how can I help to change the way you perceive large dogs? Well, maybe I start with a dog that I know. I start with a dog that like takes direction from me. And when you first get introduced to the dog, I don't expect you to approach them. And I don't expect that big dog to approach you. Maybe we're going to go for a walk. So what I usually start to do is I try to find an activity that we can do together that has nothing to do with you meeting the way that humans introduce one another. Right? Oh, say hi, shake hands, come over here. And no. Hey, we're just doing this. Don't worry about who that is. I don't care whether you like that dog or you hate that dog. I don't care whether this dog likes you or hates you. This is what we're doing. Sometimes that could be as simple as a walk. You can expand on that. But I want you to start to feel comfortable coexisting with a large dog because you currently hate large dogs or you're afraid of them or whatever. And when you can start coexisting and you can trust two things, one, that dog's not going to bother you. And two, if that dog is, I can control that situation and I got you, I can advocate for you, then we can start the snowball process of eventually kind of proceeding from there or progressing from there, if that makes sense.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's two things there. For one, I love the walk in that situation. Okay. Get the dogs moving forward together. It's a lot more natural for them and it does wonders. But ask yourself this. Why is the dog still scared of big dogs in your company, in your presence? So what you need to change is, why does that dog not have confidence in you to take care of what it's fearing? Okay, Stajara, that's the first thing. And so you have to go back and really look deep. Why does this dog not believe that I could take on anything that's presented, any kind of danger that comes our way? Example, I've told this story 1,000 times. Had 6-7 years ago, 2 pit bull mixes, same home, killing each other. Came to me with staples in their neck, really bad stuff.
Wow.
The first time I take the one dog for a walk, Renzo was like 4 years old, young little guy, right? And I never do this, but no one else was home. So I take this dog for a walk and Renzo is with me, little toddler. We're walking down the street 2 houses away from me. These people had a very nasty chow and a big nasty German Shepherd. And they had like 3 or 4 kids, young kids. I'm walking down the street and at the end of the street, I see like a 6-year-old girl with the chow and like an 8-year-old girl with the German Shepherd. And I know what's about to happen. I know it. There was no doubt in my mind. And just as I realized what's about to happen, that chow breaks away from the little girl and he comes for us. Now, I don't know if it's coming for my little boy or the dog, but my first priority is my son. That dog's not getting to my son. My second priority is the dog that people are paying me a lot of money and trusting me with the life of that animal. That's with me for fighting other dogs. So I take that dog in my left hand and I put it behind me and I kicked that dog in a Bruce Lee fashion. I don't know how many times, but with everything I had, multiple times to the side until it gave up. I stopped it. Okay. The girls were finally able to get it and get it out of there. I was really, my adrenaline went through the roof. It was not a pretty situation. First thing I do is I check on my son because I'm like, holy shit, he just witnessed a really horrible situation. And I looked at him and I said, Renzo, are you okay, buddy? And he looked at me and he said, that was amazing. So
I've never met him, but I love him, man.
I knew it was okay. But you know the thing that blew me away? That dog, if it wanted to get to that chow, I couldn't stop it with one arm. That dog stayed behind me and let me do what I had to do.
Yeah.
Everything changed with that dog that moment. That dog knew it never had to worry about anything.
You can take on the responsibility that it felt that it needed to.
It didn't have to do anything. And it goes back to the same questions that people ask me. How do you have all intact dogs, including males and female, and you never have a dog? I've never had a dog fight inside my house with my own dogs, ever. Not one time. And I say, you have to understand something, guys. There's no issue there on who's in charge when she comes into heat. It's not an issue. That's not even a thing. They don't think that way. They still play together. They still run together. They get worked up and horny together when she goes into heat. It drives them nuts, but there's never a fight because in our household, everything is clearly aligned. Our dogs live a very nice, free, happy life with our family, but make no mistake about it. The humans in this house run the show. And when Renzo was 2 years old, he knew at 2 years old that if our German Shepherd or our Rottweiler was laying in the doorway of the kitchen and he was going to the kitchen, he knew he wasn't allowed to step over the dog because space is so important in the dog world. And you step over that dog, in that dog's mind, okay, this is my space. You go around me. But instead, he would say, Bear, go. And Bear would get up and he'd go, and he'd walk away and he'd say, thank you, Bear. But that's very powerful. But that's why my kids can take the dogs out, very highly driven, strong dogs, without a leash, without any tools, and they listen to them.
It's incredible. You can't make that stuff up, but isn't it? It's incredible, you know?
You have to do it, you know? And when I see you, Blake, and I love that you have normal dogs and that your little girl gets to be with your dogs and be part of their life, because one of the first things I remember about Sophia is I just remember we had Ben and Bruno, and it was just part of her life. Her and Bruno were born a couple of months apart, and they were just inseparable. It was natural for them to go through childhood together. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's the most natural, the most beautiful thing you'll ever see in your life. But when you take a baby, when you take a little child, you take a little girl like yours, and you tell them, hey, don't do that, do it this way. They feel like a big deal, and they do it, and they learn, and they're sponges. And the dogs will listen to a little child when you provide the information correctly.
Yeah.
Okay. And so in that situation, I know kind of ran on there, Sajara, it's everything. That dog has to believe that you can control everything in its life, so it doesn't have to operate that way. And that's the answer for 90% of these questions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go ahead, buddy. You got one?
Yeah, that's powerful stuff. Here, let's see where we are, and then this might have to be the last one for me, because
Sure.
I have to keep the wife happy, which means I have to spend time with her. And I actually, just like you know, you're busy, started my day early and had one of our trainers call out sick, so I also did the closing shift. Yeah, so busy. Let's see. Oh, Geektard. Okay. There's a couple of them. There's some good ones here that I'm looking at, but my 16-week-old Rottweiler is very motivated at home with no distractions. But if other people are around or new environments, he finds me not motivating at all, neither with treats nor with toys. I can't have him off leash since he could care less about where I am. How can I change that? He eats raw food, so it's difficult to work him for his meals outside. And e-collars are not legal in Sweden. please help.
More work. What's his name? Guitar?
Guitar. Yeah, she follows you. She follows me. She's awesome. She's great.
Guitar.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Great question. You have to do more work without the distractions, and you probably have to do a lot more work than you ever think. I don't think most people realize how many repetitions it takes for a dog to truly get in tuned and understand something. One of the things I love about Dave Croyer's page and his subscription channel, he's a world-class trainer that's been on the world team multiple times. And so I get people that call me and they see my dogs doing a competition heel and they want to learn, they want to teach their dog how to do a competition heel. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so like, okay, how fast can I get there? And I just laugh and I'll say, well, go check this guy's stuff out. He's a really great trainer and this is what he does. And the reason I do that is he'll tell you it takes about 2 years. It's not something that happens fast. You have to practice over and over and over. Now, Guitar, with that being said, you're not trying to teach fancy competition healing. I get it. But listen to your dog. The dog's giving you information. If the dog is struggling when it's out in that situation, you have to take a step back and do more work without those distractions, a lot more work. And you have to be a lot more clear in the communication. You have to be a lot more clear in the reward system, and you have to be a lot more clear in the correction system. You have to, before you encounter the distractions. Yeah. You fix it without the problems, and then you enter the problems. I talk about that with reactivity a lot. So when a dog, and this is for you, Guitar, this will kind of go along with it. When a dog comes here that's reactive on the leash to other dogs, I don't take the dog for a walk for at least a week, usually closer to 2 weeks. Okay? I'm not going to put the dog in the situation to create the problem that it's here for, to allow it to blow up when it sees another dog, and then I have to create a lot of conflict. I'm not going to do it. So what I do is I spend at least a week, probably closer to 2 weeks, with that dog. I build the trust. I build that relationship. It's number one. You have to have a relationship with the animal. And I build that trust. And I build a very solid foundation in the communication system. The dog knows the words. It knows the commands. It knows when it does right. It knows when it does wrong. All that stuff has to be in place. And then you can go out and encounter those things. And what normally happens at that point, Guitar, is one of two things. Either the issue isn't there at all anymore. It's gone because now it trusts you, it believes in you, or it's so mild that when you have to use any kind of aversive or a correction, it's very mild. Because in my opinion, a correction goes a lot further when there's a relationship with the human. It 100%. Has, it's like, I remember one time, I think I was in 6th grade. This kid came to school. He had brand new sneakers on. They were pure white. They were so white, and he kept bragging about his sneakers. It got on my nerves. And then we went to lunch. We went to Paparozzi's, this little Italian deli, and we're all ordering like cheesesteaks and bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches. And he's talking about his white sneakers. I said, you know what? I've had enough. I took the bottle of ketchup, like the squirt bottle, and I just covered his sneakers. I said, there's your white sneakers now, right? Well, by the time I got back to the playground, Mr. Patiri, who is like 6'5", 6'6", our principal, is walking straight toward me, like full speed on. And I'll never forget it. I was eating a bag of Cheetos, and he walks up to me, and he takes my Cheetos, and he crushes them. And I said, hey, those are my Cheetos. And he took me by the neck, and he started choking me. And I said, my father's going to kick your ass. And he choked me all the way into the school. It had no effect on me. He had no effect on me because it had no meaning to me. He didn't mean that. Although I like him. If Mr. Patiri ever sees this, he was the best. I love him to death. To death. I didn't back then. Now, if that's my father that does that, I would have been crying like a little bitch. Yeah. Because it's my dad, and I'm scared to death, and it has meaning. You know what I mean? And it's the same. You know what? Now that I think about it, I should sue him for ruining my bag of crunchy Cheetos. Listen, I'm 48 years old. That was in 6th grade. That's a really long time ago,
Yeah,
man.
that limit, it's over. I don't think you can do it anymore. You missed the window, buddy.
Yeah, but it's the same answer for so many of the issues that people have, But I don't want to keep you on. Dude, this is 2 hours.
It's incredible. It's been great. It actually hasn't even felt like that. I think the only thing that I would add for Guitard there is by the time that you get fundamentally sound, the way that Larry said, is when you start introducing, let's call it the distractions or the competing motivators. Try to do it in a way where it can be controlled. So listen, we all have friends that don't listen, and then we have friends that want to help. Invite the friends over that want to help, that you can actually coach, because if you're all of a sudden going to throw this variable in and they can't help you with what you need, it's going to be that much more difficult. So have the people that can help you, and you know who those friends are, the ones that want to take direction. How can I help? Ignore the dog, no problem, I can do this, just so that you can systematically build to where it is that you need and just kind of go from there,
Yeah, and listen, Rottweilers mature very slowly. Like a 16-month-old Rottweiler is a baby still. They mature really, really slowly. At 16 months old, they're big goofballs. Okay, I mean they really are. They're big, goofy, pain in the ass babies. So be careful what you expect for them in that situation, because they really are fun-loving, very slow maturing dogs. But you know what, Blake? I really enjoyed this, brother. We're
gonna have to do another one of these, and then next time we'll get you on this Instagram. I apologize for you guys.
Yeah,
listen, this is absolutely incredible. This was great. You're fantastic. I love you. I love your family. I love your work, and we're definitely gonna have to do this again, brother.
It's mutual, brother. I think the world of you. You're definitely one of the good guys. I love what you're doing, and keep doing what you're doing, because I've been a big fan for a long time. And you're hitting the people that need it the most. That's where the big numbers lie, and those are the people that need the most help. And hopefully, I get back up there to New York, and we could hit some of the good spots.
We will for sure, man. We will for sure. Listen, give your family my regards. Lindsay, I'm going to go ahead and let her know you said hi, and I'll give Shay a big kiss for you, and we'll have to get together soon.
You got it, brother. You have a good weekend, okay, buddy? Thanks for doing this.
Take care, guys. Thanks for watching. And
thank you, everybody. We'll do it again soon. Peace, Blake.
Later.